Good evening and welcome to the Hazlet Board of Education Monday, May 11th, 2020 Board of Education meeting. If you'll join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have, I don't see any public. I want to confirm that. We have a couple members of staff on this evening. Any correspondence, Madam Secretary?
No correspondence.
Okay, well, we will move directly to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President.
No, wait, I do want to take attendance officially to record board participation. And I'm just pulling, I don't see Karen yet, but I'm showing Tracy Collins. Tracy, you're here? Josh Morey?
He was here.
Here.
Thank you. Greg Michaud?
Here.
Molly Polverento?
Here.
And Cammie Wheeler?
Here.
Okay, great. And we've got Michelle, Rick, Susan, and Steve from staff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great, thank you. Were you saying something about Karen, Steve?
She was in earlier and then she froze up and she texted me saying, was it her or me? And it was her end, so she hasn't texted back. She's rebooting, trying to get back in a couple minutes, so.
Okay. When she gets on, we'll reflect that in the minutes as well. So thank you for the logistics, everybody. We'll now move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, President Lemmer. So just a couple things, construction update. We did get clearance from the governor's order a few days ago, opening up construction. So we're now back full swing for construction. We're hoping to start June 1st. All of our plans are set for that date. We're busy packing in all of our buildings and getting everything ready for starting construction June 1st. So that is our target date moving forward. Congratulations to Hazlet High School for being ranked number 52 in Michigan by U.S. News and World Report. That's 52 out of 645 high schools in Michigan. So congratulations to the high school, to the administration and their staff for that prestigious award. School board elections, the deadline to file is November 3rd, and the school board election, the deadline to file is July 21st for the November 3rd election 2020. And then personnel recommendations, I'd like to recommend the following recommendations for hires. Kelsey Arambula, she's being recommended for the special ed teacher position at Ralia. She has a BA in special education and learning disabilities from Michigan State University and an autism spectrum disorder applied behavior analysis degree. She was previously employed in Cedar Valley Elementary School in Kent, Washington. And then Kristen Sobolak is being recommended for the special ed teacher at Wilkshire. She has a BS in special ed and MA in early childhood from Eastern Michigan University, and she previously taught in Ypsilanti schools. So that concludes my report.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll apologize in advance. I have a neighbor who's mowing their lawn. They apparently didn't know that I had a board meeting this evening. So if there's background noise, I apologize. But we're gonna move on to the discussion items, which is the review of the district administrative goals. So Steve and Susan, I assume you're gonna tag team that one a little bit?
Yep. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start on the first goal, promoting excellence for our students. A lot of these goals, unfortunately, we've got to put them sort of on hold because of the shutdown, but I'll just kind of skim through those. So our K-12 department chairs, we did most of that work this year, and we are finalizing some curriculum resource materials and awaiting a few budget decisions that we need to make to finalize what we'll purchase this year. But that group did a very nice job a few of the goals have to be put on hold, obviously, until next year. But overall, I think we were able to get some good work done and get prioritize our materials and resources in some of the curriculum decisions that needed to be made. Under our MTSS supports, for increasing student assessment scores, again, we didn't have end of year results, so that one is on hold, and we will just continue to monitor that next year once we're up and running. Auditing our MTSS, we did quite a bit of that work with our new principals, and we did a lot of work at the K-5 level this year looking at our MTSS, and so we will continue those conversations in the fall about adjustments that we need to make in those programs depending on if budgets will allow certain things. But we have started some discussions on changes in a few of the programming details and stuff. Third grade reading law, that's been put on hold for this year. It was supposed to go into effect this year, but because of the COVID shutdown, that's on hold. Spring math, both of the spring math goals, because we weren't able to complete everything and we won't have end of year data for that, we will just resume that in the fall as well. And then inventory and developing our supports for tier 1 behavior. We're always working on that goal. And again, that's classroom behavior stuff. So when you're not in session, that's a little bit difficult to work on. So we will resume that once normal classroom things start up. Under our professional learning, exploring new ways to build capacity and teacher use of instructional technology in the classroom. We did a lot of work with that over the course of this school year with a lot of different programming and stuff. But primarily during the shutdown, we've been working on teachers using Google Classroom and Seesaw as their platform, and any particular material needs that they need to work on, have, additional support. Margie's been working on that and doing a very nice job with that. So, and then we will continue with the PD in the fall once we get back to school. Our NGSS, we've sort of finished up our alignment work. High school was in really good shape with that, and middle school was solid. Elementary level, we're looking at some new materials for all the teachers have been trained in NGSS, but we're looking at some new materials, but we won't be making decisions on that next year. We'll probably start talking about that, but that's a couple of years down the road still. They are using the training that they got to change some of the classroom practices and using current materials that we have, but new materials will have to be down the road a little bit. Providing opportunities in the area of literacy. So we've had some of our teachers that have started with the training at the ISD, which has obviously been suspended for the essential learning practices. But again, we'll resume that as soon as the ISD is up and running at like normal. We did use some of the literacy essentials to guide the continuous learning plan while students are at home with remote learning. And we'll also be looking at some of those practices and our MTSS operations to address the slide that we know students will have during this shutdown. So to kind of reboot in the fall, whatever that's going to look like. Assessing the need for professional learning through classroom redesign. Again, once we get back, and obviously our classrooms will hopefully be up and going in the fall. We will assess the needs that our teachers have with the new furniture in their classrooms and get PD started as needed once we evaluate those programs. Student learning objectives, we were doing really well with this goal with teachers. And then with the shutdown, obviously, evaluations and things are put on hold. We don't have the data to use to kind of measure how these were going, but we were getting a ton of good feedback from Diane Limber and Brandy Butcher, who were running those programs, and teachers were really liking that experience. So I'm confident that we will resume those in the fall. Some of those teachers will probably keep their same SLOs, and some will probably do some adjustments. For special ed, the Links program at the middle school, that was going very well until the shutdown. They do have plans for in the fall to continue that program the way it was. Originally, we were going to design a class for that, but in the kind of the foresight of potential budget cuts, we might have to change that plan, but we've already talked about that, and they will resume it as is, because it was working pretty well this year. But that program is obviously growing, just like we expected it to. And for our tier 3 behavior supports, again, that's classroom work that we can't do at this point, but we've done some of that work already this year, and we will resume that in the fall. We will have to make some adjustments because we'll have some new staff in some of those places, so we will have to definitely make some adjustments with that goal as well. Multiple pathways to success for Hazlet High School students. So we are still looking at how we currently offer online courses and kind of what our vision is for the future. And so depending on who the new administrator is at the high school, those conversations will continue in the fall. But again, students have the opportunity right now to take online courses, and we've done a little bit of an adjustment on how they request those courses and how they get access to some of that stuff, just to make it a little easier for students to be able to take some of those classes that they want to take. Implementing CTE courses. Right now, we're going to keep status quo with our CTE courses. There is a possibility that we may have to cut one of those courses that wasn't as well attended with budget cuts. But again, that's just preliminary looking at that. But overall, those courses are going well, and students are having good experiences in those classes according to the high school. For on the next goal, under effective use of technology, well, does anyone have questions on the first goal? I guess I should stop there.
Susan, with all of the move to an online format, I'm just wondering, under professional development and all the training that was going on with Margie and everyone, are they identifying like new areas of need or new areas of interest among the teachers, or things that they're going to be looking to try to develop as far as some training or professional development?
Yeah, we've had some initial conversations about what our vision is going forward, because we want to be more prepared the next time that if this were to happen again, or if something similar were to happen. So we have started talking about, it used to be an option for teachers, and now we'd like to do something a little more concrete so that everyone has certain platforms like Google Classroom that they're using regularly in the classroom with students, also with Seesaw at the elementary level, just so that we can have a better handle on future needs if we have to go that route, and that it's more normal and regular for kids and teachers. So yeah.
I just want to say it's been great to see how even the voluntary training has kind of paid off.
Yes.
I know even with me, like, I had used Seesaw to see my kids work, but not to actually do work with my kids. And so it's been great to see how quickly that went on and how user-friendly it is for younger kids to be able to do that. And, the staff were great at answering questions that we had about what exactly we were supposed to be doing on that platform. So it's been great. I've heard about it for years, all the work that's been going on, but it's nice to see how that has paid off in the last few weeks.
Yeah, thank you. That's good feedback. And we've gotten back just from teachers too about other things they've heard. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions on that first goal? Okay. The second goal, effective use of technology. So our K-12 STEAM programs, those are still being integrated in some of the lesson planning for the continuous learning plan that we have. And we are doing a little bit of redesigning of one of the STEAM programs at the elementary level with the new classroom redesign, because it was a small space. So we're kind of thinking outside the box to be able to get kids the same opportunities, but do it in a different way. So we'll talk more about that in the fall once that classroom is up and running, and Margie's going to do some training with that teacher just to get that going. But space dictated some changes that were necessary, and the teacher was open to those ideas. Our student success card program with the Capital Area District Library, that has been completed. It's fully operational for students, staff, and families. However, the library is somewhat shut down as well. So that's limited, but it's all operational and everyone has what they need. Steve, you're up.
Yeah, so as we look at the future ready schools and the furnitures and such, and we pretty much went through all the committees related to deciding on technology and furniture for the new classroom. So that's pretty much a go as a part of our bond expenditure program for the summers. So all of the new boards, new cameras, everything related to technology in the classroom is really moving forward. And we've put out most of those RFPs for purchases for all of the equipment and such. So that's one. Evaluate and instructional technology in the classroom, the building capacity. That was basically that's part of the professional learning goal. Susan, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little about that.
I just did, and it's just basically that we are, it's the same goal in the first section. We just have it in two different places in this set.
Okay. So in terms of technology infrastructure, we've been able to get a jump on that with the shutdown. So we're currently working on recabling all of our district. It's been a pretty overwhelming project, but thanks to Jeff and his staff, they've really done a great job at getting that going and getting it ready so that when we get in, most of the cabling is all tied up in the ceilings. And so that'll be connected once we get into putting the actual technology in during the summer project. But we should have all that completed prior to the time that they actually go into demo and doing the construction this summer. In terms of use of sinking fund dollars, so we basically have a plan to replace all of the technology as a part of the bond and sinking fund. So most of the expenditures is coming out of bond dollars to get us to 1-to-1, but the replacement cycle of some of those devices is being funded through the sinking fund. The good news is part of the roughly 200 Chromebooks that we have passed out to students and families and staff throughout the shutdown were those computers that were going to be replaced this summer. So that's a good thing. So we did have additional technology available, and whether we get some of that back or not, those families and those staff members will have that as a part of their technology piece. So that's pretty much that goal. I don't know if there's any questions on any of that that we've been through in that goal. If not, I'll move on to the fiscally responsible piece. So the bond committees and all the design and implementation, that's pretty much been completed as we look forward to moving into the construction phase this summer. All of our committees met during last year, and most of that work's ready to move forward this summer. With the shutdown, we're actually doing a 2-week jump start. So we're hoping to start June 1st. So as we're doing all our planning and moving out, we'll have an additional 2 weeks to complete all the projects. And so that'll give us a little flexibility depending upon what happens this summer in terms of construction. Communication plan, we've been doing as much as we can on the website. We were kind of in limbo for a good period of time, not knowing if construction was going to move forward. So now that it is, we'll continue to update the website. We do have the Blackboard that's coming out in a few weeks, and we have an article specifically dedicated to the bond and also talking about technology, which is a big part of what we're doing in terms of upgrades this summer. So that will be in the Blackboard as a part of communication. Fund balance at this point, we're on track to add at least the contingency amount set aside, the $250,000. Any additional surplus as we look forward to next year, and unfortunately looking at budget shortfalls, any of that will be carried forward to use to help balance the budget for next year. So we haven't gotten to those numbers yet, but the state revenue consensus meeting is coming up next week, and so we'll get a little better feel for what that looks like. The big challenge will be how much the federal government's going to subsidize states in terms of public education and what that'll look like. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see where that comes out. The sinking fund, that new fund has been set up and established. The software conversion has been completed thanks to Rick and his staff. That was a huge undertaking. If anybody's been through a financial conversion, they know what kind of planning and work it involves getting that up and running, especially when it involves paying people and making sure that everybody gets paid on time. So thanks to Rick and his staff for getting that completed. So that's pretty much the technology piece. Any questions on any of that? I know I'm going through this pretty quick, but most of the stuff we've talked about. So seeing none, we'll move forward. So effective communication. The website app has been a continued goal to get that up and running. We've added users during the shutdown. That's been a really, really great tool to get information out as we've been communicating on pretty much a weekly basis with both staff and the community. There's been many 20 push notifications that have been sent out. So that app has proved very helpful, especially with not knowing anything that's going on. It's really hard to put stuff out in print because it's changing every day. So the app allows us to update a lot of that information that's going out on a regular basis. So as I mentioned, the number of users has gone up. So we're at about 2,800 last time that Jeff gave me the numbers. In terms of our administrative team building, we shared that professional development plan with the board on all of our administrators and what they're doing. That's changed a little, obviously, now with the advent of having an interim principal at the high school and an interim assistant. So we've been working with both Brandy and Stephanie during this shutdown in terms of trying to make sure that they have all the tools that they need to do everything at the high school. And so they've been doing a great job. So thanks to both of those individuals. And we shared what that looked like in terms of the individual plans for professional development for each and every one of our administrators.
I'll chime in on this one just for a second, Steve. We're working on our equity and diversity plan with Dr. Flannel from MSU, and we have put that on hold just because of everything else going on. We have currently already developed some communication that's ready to go, even in multiple languages, ready to go out to parents and students and staff. And we've also developed a survey that we will deploy at some point to start that, to continue with that work. But we decided when the shutdown came along that it was just not good timing for families to try to respond to those types of things. We'll wait until things settle down a little bit and we can be more intentional about that work.
Susan, I have a question about that. So it sounds like the survey is essentially ready to go. Is there any concern that because of COVID, the questions need to be revisited, or that there's a change in focus in any way?
No, because we designed the questions to be pretty open-ended to try to solicit some feedback on lots of different areas. So I think we're in good shape, but we will revisit it one more time before we actually roll it out in the fall. So just in case anybody wants to tweak anything, but we had done quite a bit of work with that, and then everything came to a screeching halt. So we had to.
Can you remind me who the survey is intended to go out to?
It's going to go out to students, staff, community members, community business people as well. So we're going to try to hit as many Hazlet stakeholders as possible.
Is it just one survey? Are there different sets of questions? Like, are the student questions a little bit different than the staff questions or the community questions?
If I remember correctly, they're very similar,
Okay.
But there are some extra ones in the community one, if I remember correctly. It's been.
And then what ages for students?
What ages?
Yeah.
Ooh, I would have to look again.
Okay.
I can't remember how low we went. I can't remember.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yep. It's been a while since I've looked at that.
I'm sure it has.
Yeah. Any questions on the communication section?
I just want to say again, it has been nice to have consistent communications from the district, from the principals, from the teachers. It's all been, I'm getting stuff from 3 different buildings. Mm-hmm. And so it's been nice to see kind of the consistency of message, the coordination, like for picking up stuff from all the schools for the student things that were left behind in lockers. And then it was very well coordinated from all aspects. And so it's just this teamwork and this, the collaboration you guys have done in the past has paid off in this case.
Yeah. Thank you.
So the next goal is the safe, respectful, and disciplined environment for all. So the crisis plan update, we updated our manuals as a part of our approval for the MSP grant. As I mentioned in my monthly newsletter, that's been put on hold. Those dollars that were originally allocated for safety grant have been diverted to other areas in the state budget. So whether that comes online or not, we'll have to see. The threat assessment protocol that was going to be a part of some of that has also been put on hold until we get into next year and we can see exactly what that looks like. So,
So for that one, you say there was a meeting scheduled for April 21st. Did you hold that meeting?
we have not, nope.
Okay.
We did have a crisis team meeting, but it was kind of had a different focus, I believe, just to prepare for anything that would come up during the shutdown. Safe school environment for all students. So our Be Nice program, I think we're in year 4 of our Be Nice program, and that has been a very successful program for us and has allowed us to integrate other programs into that. So we will continue that next year. We are finding that it's a nice platform for kids, and we've kept it consistent K-12. So the language is very familiar to all grade levels, and it is a nice tool to get kids to talk about things and bring things forward that we need to be aware of. So we will continue that program. Continuing diversity and inclusivity work, again, we will continue our work with Dr. Flanow in the fall as we expand our programming for all of the diversity work that we're going to do. And that's a huge goal for us, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So right now there are other things we had to focus on, and it needed to wait. Determining next steps for our mental health team. Our mental health team does continue to meet with Pam during the shutdown, and they are continuing to have conversations and offer up supports of anything that comes up with students and or families during the shutdown. So again, that's on a case-by-case basis right now. It's a little harder to identify some of those needs but we just simple things like reaching out to kids that we haven't heard from or things like that. That work is continuing.
So the safety procedures, we are, as a part of our bond implementation, we are going to secured vestibules this year. So we still have to have some conversations in terms of implementation and how that looks. Unfortunately, the shutdown, everything that's going on, I kind of put that on the back burner, but the secured vestibules will still be implemented as part of the bond work. We just have to work through the procedural aspects of what that's going to look like. So all of our entrances will have a direct entrance right into the offices, and then people will have to be buzzed out of the offices. So that's kind of the last phase of our security upgrades that we've done. In terms of the working with Meridian Township Police, we started that in the beginning, and then unfortunately that was kind of put on hold, and we're just going to continue that into next year as we look at all of our safety procedures for next year, which could look a little different as we look at reopening in the fall. Some of those efforts may be diverted to looking at, procedures for people coming in the building other than safety, taking temperatures, any kind of health protocols that we may or may not have to implement to make sure that people entering our building are safe. So that's another huge can of worms that we're going to probably be opening this summer to look at how we can manage all of the entrance, not just safety, but the health issues related with individuals coming into our building. So I think that's it. It's a lot of information in a short period of time. As I mentioned, this is kind of our last wrap up of the goals before we incorporate those in evaluations. So I would be happy to answer any questions specifically on any areas or any comments from the board.
This is Tammy. I appreciate the fact that under safety, you are considering that broader scope of health and safety, that there and may not just be entering the building and screening protocols, but what other safety and health precautions, whether it be increased cleaning regimens or all of the different recommendations that are likely to come down or have been coming out from public health officials. So I appreciate you articulating that that's already on your radar.
Mhm.
And I did have one other question before I open up to other folks related to, maybe you can't answer this question, but I guess technically it's under the bond related goals and the fact that we are able to start construction, or it looks like we'll be able to start construction early. I guess I'm just hypothesizing that if the state were to make recommendations that we actually return earlier than anticipated, it sounds like that puts us in a better position to be able to do that with the least amount of disruption.
Correct. I've not seen anything from the state in terms of starting early. Most of the things that I've seen is starting later or coming up with a plan of a delayed start if we had to do that. So, at this point, we set the school date, first day, August 31st. We don't have a calendar in place because we've got to negotiate with that with our HEA union. However, the common calendar is still in place, so spring break, Christmas break. But depending upon if we open up, when we open up, how we open up, all those things could change. So, so we'll just have to see. Any other specific questions on the goals?
I know it's hard. We have in the past had significant questions for you as we reviewed these goals, but knowing that so much of it is pending, or for lack of a better word, incomplete, but incomplete due to no fault of anybody's, unforeseen circumstances. It might be a little more challenging for us to kind of wrap our heads around what has and hasn't been accomplished. But again, I want to give folks a chance to, if there are any comments or questions.
No, I was just going to say I appreciate all where you guys made the notation which of these are going to continue into the next year. So again, getting back to what Tammy said, you guys were making progress, doing some really great work on these because of these really unusual circumstances that you still plan to continue working on them. The focus hasn't changed. The goals haven't changed. It's just the timeline's been changed. So, it'll be great to see going into next school year, maybe how you tweak some of these given what you were learning so far in the school year, and maybe adding to them or changing them a little bit given what you've learned. But I think it makes complete sense that the time frame just on these has changed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, started talking. It sounds like we are okay to move on. So we are on this good little board reports, and I believe we have not had any committee meetings. Is that accurate? Am I remembering that correctly?
Correct, Tammy. The Finance and Facilities hasn't met.
Neither has Policy and Personnel.
Great, thank you. So we're on to items from board members.
So if all of you have not heard, I'm not sure how emails have gotten shared, but the Race for Alia, which was scheduled for this weekend, this Sunday, is actually still going to happen as a kind of do it on your own. You can still register, and they're asking people to send in pictures where their former shirts from the races. They're taking donations. They're still looking at ways to try to use this in a way to raise money for the Ninja course. But so they're going to hold it. It's just you get to hold your own 5K this weekend. So hopefully, I think the weather's supposed to be warmer finally. So if you want that information, I know that they have it on their social media pages, and I'm sure that the link could be gotten to everybody pretty easily. But they're trying to at least still hold this event, even though we can't all hold it together.
Appreciate that update, Molly. Thank you. Greg, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Yeah, Superintendent Cook and I had gotten into a couple discussions here regarding a recent policy enacted on in light of obviously the school getting shut down, et cetera, and in the middle of a term. And the decisions that were made to move forward with pass fail or grade point averages and all that. And so I was kind of curious as to where that fell underneath the purview of the board to make that decision, or if it was an administrative decision. So, I mean, we had some good discussions on it. Yeah, you know, they were differing opinions. Obviously, I have a little bias towards the GPA piece of it, that these students here had achieved a certain level of performance in that term, and then weren't able to benefit from that performance with an elevated GPA. And so we talked about the concerns of requiring this GPA, right? And the discussions that we had with the 8th graders, assigning a GPA to those high school classes that they were taking. And now we made a decision that's reflective of the board, although it wasn't made by the board, to go to this pass-fail format. And we understand the timing of it all and all that. But so I got looking at the administrative guidelines here. So my question here, a long way around getting to it, is for the board. On these administrative guidelines, there's a delegated authority that's given to the superintendent to make these decisions. And I wasn't sure if that was a standing approval, Steve, or if there has been discussions on these administrative guidelines, just for clarification in the future. God forbid we have to look at a situation like this in the future. But for those decisions that are made and put into policy, is this a standing approval, or does the board have to delegate that approval?
So are you asking me that question?
Yeah, I just didn't know if there's been any discussions over any of the board meetings in the past here over this delegated authority, or if it's just again a standing approval that the board is underneath the administrative guidelines. And I'm looking at 132.2 that gives you that authority.
So Greg, and I wasn't on the board when they went through the whole process of kind of going through the whole our whole book of policies and going through everything. Karen and Tammy can speak much more to what that process was, but usually there's not an administrative guideline if there's not a policy that's been approved by the board that matches up with it. So tell me the number again, because then I'll go in and look at the policy and see when it was updated, and it's something we could always talk about, or you and I can email back and forth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not looking for an answer today. Just put it out there if we can get some clarification on it, because obviously this thing hit us out of left field, right? And so,
and usually there's I know Susan and I ran into this earlier this year where there was a pretty non-specific board policy, and then there were administrative guidelines that went with it to allow the administration to carry out what that policy said. But because the policy wasn't overly specific, there wasn't anything that was wrong with the administrative guidelines. It was just there was room for interpretation and kind of room to go back and tweak some things or to fix some things. So I think I think there's been enough turnover on the board to kind of revisit what that process is, where it comes to policies and how often they're approved, how often they're reviewed, and then how the administrative guidelines fit into that. I think is probably just in general a good idea. But I'll go in and try to find the policy in the specific language. What was the number for the administrative guideline? I just want to make sure I got it right.
This is, Molly, the administrative guidelines themselves under 132.2. So it's not a specific policy. It's just policies that get generated and then put in and approved that outside of the board's approval. I'm not sure where that threshold is at. And then really the administrative guidelines give the superintendent the authority to do this.
Well, it's really that there would be a policy that had been adopted by the board previously that delegated that authority.
Got you. Okay.
And then the administrative guidelines provide some structure to how that's executed, how that's carried out. But there has to be a policy in place that we've approved at some point.
Right, and that's what I was going to say, Greg, is generally Hazlitt's modus operandi has been to delegate authority to the superintendent in a lot of areas. And so that's, as Molly said, the policy would state that the board has given the superintendent the authority to do X, Y, Z. And the administrative guidelines that you're looking at, again, might be a little more specific or not. It's meant to be how should or in what manner should the superintendent carry out that policy.
Yeah, I think the policy.
Tammy and Greg and Molly, it seems though that this is a topic we should put on our next committee agenda, since we both have committee meetings coming up. And I hate to be a point of order person, but we're having a discussion and the board reports isn't necessarily a place for discussion, but we can have a broad discussion in committee. And then if we need to, we can put that as a discussion item. We can have it in the superintendent's report. We can have it in our committee reports at the next meeting. But this should be a broader topic of discussion that we could have in committee meetings that are coming up in the next week.
Agreed. And I'll reiterate that, Molly, you raised a good point of sort of what's the process or even the timeline for doing a very comprehensive policy review.
Right.
Feels like we just did it, but the just did it was now
5 years ago.
right.
Yeah.
But again, to Karen's point, absolutely. Thank you for calling, because this really is, it is a question from a board member, but it deserves and requires a broader conversation, which is not something that's on our agenda for the evening.
And it actually fits well because Susan and I and Steve have our meeting with Dick Halleck from Neola tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Greg, did you have any other items while you have the floor?
No, thank you.
All right. Other board members? And Steve, can you clear your screen so I can see faces, please? Thank you. There we go.
Sorry, I didn't realize we were going to be on that long talking about that, so my bad.
All right, other items from board members? Okay, seeing none. We do actually have an action item this evening, so I'll need a motion, and the two options would be to either support the proposed ISD general fund budget for 2021 or to disapprove the budget. I don't know the will of the group or who wants to make a motion in either direction. I should have maybe fielded it in advance, but I didn't.
Well, Tammy, I'll go ahead to put it on the table. I'll move support for the ISD budget.
I will
Great.
second.
All right, we have Karen with the motion and a second from Molly. So as by means of discussion, this was the proposal that Jason from the ISD presented to the board at our last meeting. It came with attachments, again, which were in our packets this time around. Pretty standard stuff. A lot of it is not discretionary. That statutorily have to provide services with a few discretionary items as well. Anyone have any questions either about the proposal? All right, hearing none, then we can move to a vote. All in favor, I will go through a roll call. Mr. Mori.
Yes.
Ms. Palbrento.
Yes.
Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Mashad.
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler.
Yes.
Ms. East.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well, so the motion carries. Next, we have our consent agenda items, several items. I'll walk through those. We have approval of the minutes from the April 27th, 2020 regular board meeting. Item number 2, 2019-2020 proposed budget amendment. That's our district budget, as discussed at the April 27th meeting. Item number 3, boiler replacement at Rallia. Item number 4, approval of personnel recommendations. Kelsey Bula and Kristen Sobolak as special education teachers at Raleigh and Wilkshire respectively. And item number 5, approval of superintendent administrator evaluation changes, as we also discussed at the last meeting. Anyone need to have any of those items pulled or would like to have any of those items pulled? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda items.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion from Karen,
I second.
second from Josh. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll again. I'll go in opposite order. Karen East,
Yes?
Tammy Wheeler,
Yes.
Greg Machad,
Yes.
Tracy Collins. Oh, Tracy, you might be frozen. I'll circle back. Molly Palbrento,
Yes.
Josh Morey.
Yes.
I'm voting yes.
Yes.
And Tracy, was that a yes from you? I think I heard a yes. Can other people confirm that?
I
Yes.
thought I did.
Okay.
I heard something. Yes.
All right. That motion carries as well. The joys of technology.
Yes.
She is.
Yeah. You put it in the chat too.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move to announcements then. We have a policy personnel committee meeting scheduled for May 19th at 7:30 a.m. This is actually will officially be a remote meeting now because we are still within the stay-at-home, stay safe order.
Yep.
Finance facilities committee meeting on May 20th at 9 a.m. Again, will be a remote meeting via Zoom. We do not have a Board of Education meeting on the 25th, which is in our normal cycle due to Memorial Day. So our next meeting will be in June, and I should have looked up the date. If anyone knows it off the top of your head.
June 8th.
June 8th, thank you very much. And, oh, duh, it's the next thing on the item. on the announcement. Keep reading, President Lemmer. And that one, we will have to determine as we get closer whether or not we're still under stay home, stay safe, or that will be an in-person meeting. But that is scheduled to start at 7 p.m.
June 8th.
All right, we've reached the end of our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move, we adjourn.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Was that Cammie?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion to approve, or excuse me, to adjourn. Mr. Morey,
Yes.
Ms. Palbrento,
Yes.
Ms. Collins,
She's smiling.
all right, we might have to circle back to that one. Mr. Machad,
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler,
Yes.
Ms. East.
It looks like we lost her.
Oh, we lost Ms. East as well. We still have quorum. I vote in favor as well. We will call us adjourned. Thank you.